Hello, my friends. Welcome back. We are building the welcome message project from the YByte Python curriculum available at www.ybyte.in. In the previous video, we saw the high level objectives of this project as well as an outline. And we realized that this project is all about making functions which are flexible, which are also protecting of themselves, which means if I get an input which is not what I expected, rather than crashing, I must get out of it quite gracefully. And that we do a little bit later. We will start, however, with something very, very simple. I'm going to write a function to, for example, create a short form given a certain, let's say, set of words. So I can just write this function. Let's say def, say short, form. Let's say I call it name1, or I can maybe call it word1 and word2. So say word1 and word2. Now, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to say, look, create a local variable called final, and I just say, well, final is word1, let's say 0, plus let's say word2 0. Now I'm expecting word1 and word2 to be strings, and I can just go and say return, let's say final dot upper. Now this function is a valid Python function, quite straightforward. We have seen this kind of thing before, but mind you, this is a Python function. I cannot access this directly from the command line. In fact, what I need to do is to run Python first. This is a part of the file called wm.py. So I must run the Python file first, come to the command line in Python, and then this function is available. Look, Python, say 3 minus I, let's say wm.py. The moment I do this, I get a command line, provided there's no, let's say, syntax error on this. Now, clearly, I can start using this. For example, I can go and say, well, short form. Perhaps I can get a short form of, let's say, we need, comma, let's say, YByte, maybe my name and where I work. And that tells me it's VW. That's because, remember, word1 is we need, word2 is YByte, and I'm picking the character 0 from there, which is the first character, so V and W, and I convert that to uppercase. I can take one more example. Let's just say smart, and let's say smart, and, maybe brilliant or something, or let's say intelligent. Just saying something. Perhaps these are things that a person thinks about himself. If I do this, it becomes SI. Again, there is no surprise in what's going on here. We have seen this before. But now notice what happens if I were to try and access this function with just one argument. Let's say I just want to say smart. Clearly, that will give me an error. And the error, it tells me that, look, I was expecting 2 positional arguments. I was missing one of them. In fact, I do not know what is word2. Now, this is again not a surprise, because remember, when we call a function, the first argument, which is word1, is written first, then the word2. Now, in this case, I'm not providing word2. What happens, for example, if I were to do something similar, I just go and say, look, let's say smart, intelligent, and let's say, brilliant. If I were to say this, that is also a problem, because I have written my program to have 2 arguments. As it says, type error, it says a short form function expects 2 arguments, but 3 were given. So basically, if the number of arguments provided is different from the number of arguments that I have on this, on this function definition, that causes a problem. Now, contrast this with something that we have seen before. This function short form, we could give an index. We'll come to that later. But I could give any number of words to it. For example, here I gave brave, smart, heroic, great, courageous. It was all fine. Here I added super. So we had a much more flexible function which could take any number of arguments. Let's see how we can do it. Well, in fact, the way to do this is quite simple. All I can say is that, look, instead of giving what is called positional arguments, I will give, let's say, variable arguments. And the way I will go about doing this is that instead of word1, word2, word3, whatever, I will just go and say, well, let's just do WORDS. Now, this is called the args, ARGS. There is no compulsion that it must be called words. It can be called anything. But the important point is that you must have a star over here. Now, what I will do right now is that since I don't have word1, word2 defined, that is going to cause a problem. I will just, let's say, run this function. By saying without a return, I'll just go and say, well, print, let's say, words. Now, the important point I want you to realize is that now with this star words, basically I can give any number of inputs to this function and it will not crash. Not like here, it won't give me this type error. It will keep running. That's the point I want to make. However, for this function to be accessible to me again, I must get out of my Python shell. Let's clear this. I must once again run this Python program so that the new function definition is now available to me. So when I do this, notice when I now run, let's say smart short form with 3 arguments, that is not a problem. In fact, it prints words. We'll see what this means. It's printing this with round brackets. We'll come back to this. But the important point is that if I give, let's say 2 arguments, it just prints that the function does not cause an error. And that's the point I'm trying to make, that now I can give it any number of arguments. Let's say I just add, say, super. I mean, anything you want to add, you can add. So long as it's, it's comma separated, in fact, the function won't crash. So in fact, this function has now become flexible in the sense that, look, it can take any number of arguments. Now in the literature, this goes by the name star, let's say args. It's kind of like variable arguments. But like I said, it doesn't have to be that name. It can be any name so long as your function definition has a star. Before wrapping this up, I will update this project with, let's say, a few print statements. I'm just going to take that directly from the other project that I have in order to save time. So what I've done here is, I put this print statements. Now remember, this Python file is now quite interesting. There's a function definition in the beginning. Then there are a bunch of print statements. Obviously, these have to be unindented so that they are not part of the function. And then just say, let's say, welcome to the programmer's den. I hear you have been learning Python and so on. We had this in the demo project. When the project starts now, which means that if I run it now, for example, it gives me a much more elaborate output. It just says, okay, welcome to the programmer's den. I hear you have been learning Python. Guess you can use the command line to create your own welcome kit. First thing, let's create a shortcode. Now, obviously, we're not fully ready yet, but this message gives us a context and sets us for where we are going. I hope you found this interesting. And in general, if you think this way of learning by building activities, by developing them in a step-by-step manner is something that you like, look at our website, www.ybyte.in, because that is how we learn Python programming. Take care. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.